This is the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast.
Exclusively on the Herd App Media Network.
Tell it to me straight up.
Hello, and welcome into the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast, proudly part of the Hail Varsity Network. I am Greg Smith, This week is going to be a doozy. Nebraska football returns from spring break, and Pro Day is this week. Who knows what else the week will bring, friend. Today, I'm joined by writer/editor of Saturday Out West, Varsity Club podcast host, and all-around good dude, Derek Peterson. Derek, how are you, man?
I'm tired, but I'm good. I thought when we got into the NCAA tournament that I wouldn't have to deal with any more like 9 p.m. local time games that went until, close to midnight. But then, we get probably like one of the greatest tournament games that I've experienced in multiple years in TCU, Arizona, Sunday night. So I'll take it. If being super tired Monday morning is price to pay for getting to watch that game, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great game up until the point to where I fell asleep. And then
I was just about to ask, did you get to watch the game or did you fall asleep?
Come on, man. You know me well enough to know that I definitely fell asleep watching that game. I was going to say the game for me was the Carolina-Baylor game. That was right in the middle of the day. That was great to see that.
That's your sweet spot.
That is definitely my sweet spot. No, man.
Especially on a Sunday. If anything's past 7:00 on a Sunday, I'm just like, I'm not going to text Greg.
No, you know me well. That is, and it's funny because I was actually, it was like 8:30 last night, and we were actually catching up on Survivor for a second, and then I told my wife, I go, no, I'm going to turn off all of these screens and go ahead and go to bed. She looks down and goes, dude, it's 8:30. That's my bedtime. All of the different things that I'm trying to keep track of right now are going off, and it's time to go to bed. So I did. That's kind of what happened. You guys just got a glimpse into the old manness that is my life.
We've got two very different approaches to this season of sports. I'm like, I'm going to stay up and it's going to hurt my sleep schedule, but I want to watch these games. And you're like, no, man, I got to get my sleep.
No, I got to get my sleep.
Yours is definitely the more appropriate for managing long-term health. Yours is also, I'm fairly certain that I can confidently say this. Yours is also definitely the better approach in terms of like, managing the rapport with your significant other. Because Alex hates that I keep staying up and watching these games.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. And the part of this is that I actually saved this time for me. It's really NBA playoff time. Like that's the time where I'll sacrifice and stay up because I always want to see that. And plus, what as most of you listening know, like with so many good teams out west, especially my favorite team, though they're not qualified in the good category this year. Like I'm always up during NBA playoff time, and I like to watch the games, period, though, even if it doesn't involve the Lakers on the West Coast. So that's the time that I sacrifice to sleep and a little bit of the relationship with the significant other, because she does not understand for the life of her why I would want to stay up to watch, I don't know, Golden State Portland in the first round. It has nothing to do with the Lakers. It starts at 9 p.m. tip-off.
Those are labors of love.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. But it's always entertaining. Now, each week we have a few mainstay segments of the show. The first one is called Coach Speak, where we go over something that a coach, player, or talking head said, and we give you the straight up breakdown of what they meant.
Coach Speak to Real Talk.
This week, it actually comes from none of them. I guess it comes from an organization. I guess the statement was from D and Jimmy Haslam. Don't love that they put D out in front of this instead of just putting Jimmy Haslam on there. But that's just one of the many problems with the statement here from the Cleveland Browns after they acquired Deshaun Watson in a blockbuster trade last week. And I'm gonna read a part of this and then we'll kind of react to it. They said, quote, "We spent a tremendous amount of time exploring and investigating the opportunity to trade for Deshaun Watson. We are acutely aware and empathetic to the highly personal sentiments expressed about this decision. Our team's comprehensive evaluation process was of the utmost importance due to the sensitive nature of his situation and the complex factors involved."
Let's break that down.
And then they went on to say a bunch of other stuff as well. I'll link to the full statement. But Derek, what did they really mean by all of this?
this is the we did our research statement. This is the don't ask us any questions statement. And funny enough, John Barr from ESPN tweeted shortly after that statement came out that Tony Busby, the attorney for the 22 women involved in still pending civil suits, Tony Busby told John Barr of ESPN that no NFL teams reached out to him or his clients during the course of their efforts to research the Deshaun Watson situation. And there's a quote from him: "Brown's organization did not reach out to me. I didn't expect them to do so and can understand why they didn't, but knowing what I know, they probably should have." You know, they wanted to trade for Deshaun Watson. So they traded for Deshaun Watson. And then, you know, this is what we get with professional clubs. They spend billions of dollars on PR firms, and then we get the same kind of buzzwords with, you know, plug and play sentiments for statements like this. And, I mean, they wanted to trade for Deshaun Watson, so they did. And they're going to, you know, say whatever they feel needs to be said to try to mitigate the public outcry of trading for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and there's a lot of layers to this, and one of them to me is that it's hard to be like only upset with the Browns in this situation, because it's not as if they were the only team that would have ended up in this spot and having to make this statement. We could have put this exact thing. We could have just tipped the graphic and turned it into an Atlanta Falcons graphic. We could have done it and put it with any number of teams that were trying to pursue him that he did not allow to pursue him in a trade because he wouldn't waive his no trade clause. It's so strange that Deshaun Watson had even given all of the 22 women that are accusing him of various things, him not playing last year, to get to the point of he is as sought after as he was, and he had seemingly all the leverage in this situation to then make this decision to end up picking to go to Cleveland. And then they had to then make the statement because, like you said, they wanted to trade for Deshaun Watson, and they were the ones that got to do it. And so this statement was going to have to come out. I just think that it's the inevitability of this statement coming out and the inevitability of this is just what happens in the NFL. It kind of bums me out, because you just would think that at some point there'll be some kind of consequences for behaving in this way. And then there's just kind of the gross optics of it, is what I would call it, when Deshaun Watson first found out that he wasn't going to be indicted and then kind of tweeted, I should have pulled the exact thing, but it was essentially the truth shall set you free. And so there's just a lot here that just makes you really uncomfortable, but not at all surprised by what transpired.
Yeah, I think the problem for the Browns was that in sort of in tandem with this statement, they give him more guaranteed money on a 5-year deal than any player has ever gotten in the history of the NFL. And the structure of that deal is significantly in favor of Watson and protects him in a hypothetical situation where he gets suspended. Why would he get suspended? I don't know. He didn't do anything wrong, but if he gets suspended for the 20, if he gets suspended for the 22 season, then his base salary is $1 million and he gets a $45 million signing bonus up front. So his 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed deal, he's going to get the vast majority of it, even if he doesn't play football for the Browns for an extended period of time. So, to have that be the contract that he gets, maybe his agent is just that good at his job and completely ran circles around Browns negotiators, or maybe, that was the thing that flipped the Browns from, no, I don't want to go there, to, okay, no, actually I will go there.
Yeah, because there was reporting that they were out. And they came back with something. So that would make sense.
I mean, that's a sweetheart contract. And, if this is not like a 1-year flyer on a guy. This is not like a, like what we've seen with other instances of guys having checkered off-field histories where they get, I'm not even going to say checkered, the problematic off-field histories where they get, a 1-year deal, and it's sort of like prove that you can stay between the lines kind of deal. And then they get signed to a bigger deal after that. No, this was a full on, like, the Cleveland Browns wanted Deshaun Watson, and they threw everything possible at him to get Deshaun Watson. And, they're getting buried over the statement that they put out, but it seems like it's a situation that the Cleveland Browns are willing to live with, which brings up, I think, a larger point that the NFL just doesn't know how to deal with these kinds of situations yet. Calvin Ridley gets a 1-year suspension for betting on his own team. And now you've got this going on sort of in the same month, 30-day span.
Yeah, within 30 days.
The NFL just doesn't know how to deal with this. And it needs to kind of learn. But, one of the sentiments that I saw was that the problem is in situations like this, like what statement from a team, what answer is going to satisfy everyone? Like somebody is going to be upset with the way that the situation is handled. A grand jury chose not to indict him. And there are, a number of think pieces that you can go find online and read, or a number of articles. I don't have the statistics in front of me, so I'm not going to speculate about the super low percentage of sexual assault allegations that lead to criminal charges. It just doesn't happen very often. But, the way our criminal system is set up, like, you are innocent until you are proven guilty in a court of law. And, so should he not be allowed to play while his legal situation is getting sorted out? If that is taken away from him, and that let's just remove Deshaun Watson from the situation. If person X is dealing with a legal situation and he is not allowed to do his job during that legal situation, and then it turns out that he was in fact innocent of what he was being charged of, like, how do you reverse course there? And I'm not saying that I think Deshaun Watson is innocent or anything, but I just think, like, these are all conversations that NFL teams they don't know how to handle, it seems like, right now, specifically with sexual assault, sexual misconduct. They don't know how to handle it. And, when you see statements from the Cleveland Browns, like what you just read, coupled with, like the attorney of those 22 women saying that nobody contacted him, you get the sense that the NFL franchises don't want to try to even figure out how to handle things.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I always arrive at, is that it's not just that they don't know how to handle it, which is, I think I agree with you, that is true. It's that they don't want to know how to handle it and want to see what's going to come about the process of trying to get a better grip on that, right? And I think that I saw kind of a tweet that kind of summed up the timeline of how this happened. And so Deshaun Watson in 2020 signed a 4-year, $156 million extension with Houston. In 2021, he was sued by 22 women accusing him of sexual misconduct and did not play. And then in 2022, he got a fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million deal from Cleveland, with the details that you laid out, which is just the protection that he would get for then being suspended for a year is just, that's something. And that does feel to me, and I know this has not been reported, but this is speculation. It feels to me that is something that they came back with. And that was the thing that tipped Deshaun Watson's mind from going to, say, Atlanta to then going to Cleveland, because, like I said, has been reported that Cleveland was out, so they had to come back with something. But the NFL and the Browns in this particular case, because of them not reaching out to the attorney of the 22 women, it does feel like they just don't want to know. And I think that it is important that we get out there that the NFL they have to try. Like, you have to try and do something to try and be better in this area. And you asked a good question, which is, what would be the statement that would satisfy people? I don't think that there is one after a team has signed a guy or traded for a guy in this case. I think the better statement is not pursuing him, or they would never do this, but coming out with a statement saying that you weren't going to pursue him. But we know that the NFL would never do that, because it is always about the bottom line and it's always about winning games. Like, so that just never would happen. But one thing I definitely also want to
Well,
point
it's
out.
baked into it's baked into the model. I mean,
Right.
like professional sports is a bottom line business, and people build their careers around winning and losing games. And if they lose games, they lose their job. And so when you have a guy like Deshaun Watson, who's talent wise is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield.
Mhm.
Like when you have the opportunity to go get that guy, if he doesn't have, a history attached to him, GMs go get that guy. And if they do, it sometimes is the difference between them keeping their job or losing their job. And so when that is like when that's the wheel of your organization, like how does morality doesn't fit into that.
Right. And it really never, no, you're right. It really never has. And I don't know how you change that in sports when it's such a bottom line business. And so it's just a difficult situation. But I don't think that I don't think the solution is to bury your head in the sand, which seems to be the solution so many times. The thing that I was going to mention was that in response to the trade, the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center received more than 1,000 donations after the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson. And while, man, I'm trying to think of even how to phrase this. While it's great to support that Rape Crisis Center, that should have been probably was the first alarm bell, I guess, for the Cleveland Browns, the response that came from that. And then it probably led to, in part, to the statement that they had to put out. They probably would have had to put a statement out either way. But when that is the immediate response by people to the trade that you just made, I feel like you should think twice about what it is that you're doing.
Look, it's really hard to be public with people about sexual assault. It's really hard for people that have experienced sexual assault to open themselves up in the way that 22 different women have. And I think that that's something that people need to keep in mind. Like when people start claiming conspiracy theories and, collusion and things like that, like it's like this has been going, how long have we been talking about Deshaun Watson and this situation and allegations of sexual assault? I mean, over a year. He didn't play last year.
Right.
Like this has been a very long, drawn out process. And from the looks of things, it looks like it'll continue to be that. That's hard for people that have experienced sexual assault to go through. And I would just keep that in mind when you're, yelling on the internet about how this is, fake allegations and fake news and whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely. And now one of the other things, we're going to shift gears here from that topic to something else that it's been going on for a little while now. And that Derek is just the perfect person to talk to you about this particular situation. And that's the Russell Westbrook situation with the Lakers and the season has not gone well, obviously, for my Los Angeles Lakers. They've been very bad for a number of reasons, not just because Russell Westbrook has been up and down. But a few weeks back, Skip Bayless was doing the Skip Bayless thing where he was on social media talking about Russell Westbrook and kept calling him Russell Westbrook. And his wife, Russell Westbrook's wife, Nina, responded to him with a kind of long, very well thought out and a lot of good points were made Twitter thread in response to that, which then led to Russell Westbrook, of course, being asked about it in his next press conference. And of course, Russ said, amongst other things, that he had his wife's back and that he just doesn't want to tolerate the Westbrook nickname, and that, calling him out of his name and doing those sorts of things are just too far for fans to be doing. And then also, obviously, commentators as Skip Bayless is. So with that being the backdrop, I want to start here remove the Russell Westbrook fandom of Derek out of this for a second. We're going to put that to the side for 1 second and come back to it. It is that portion, the Westbrook nickname, it's weird to even say out loud, is that too far? Is that a bridge too far in your mind on the scale of fan trash talk?
In talking about degree, look, I'm somebody that called Paul George Pandemic P way off P.
Way
And
off P is so good.
I'm pretty sure I tweeted it.
Yeah.
You know, we like to hate on teams that we like to hate on, or teams that beat our favorite teams. And I am guilty of this as well. And it gets, we pick on individual players that fail in front of us.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins is mine. That's one for me that comes to mind right away.
And, that's just something that comes with sports. Westbrook isn't like, it's not degrading. It's not obscene. When you watch him throw something off the top of the backboard, like it's appropriate and clever given his name. But I can understand, like, Russell Westbrook has dealt with this his entire career for 15 years. I can understand why when you've dealt with this for as long as he has dealt with this, when you can reach a point where enough is enough. And he talked about in the press conference that he had, where like his family doesn't want to come watch him even at home games anymore because they don't want to hear it in the crowd, because he like for his kid, like, dad is getting heckled, dad is getting yelled at by people who don't know him and they don't understand why. Russell, it's funny to go from Deshaun Watson to this. Russell Westbrook has done nothing wrong in his career. He's been a model citizen every single place that he's been. He's been actively involved in the community. He's a devoted father. He's a devoted husband. He's a wonderful person by all accounts. I've gotten to see him a handful of times in my life, and they were excellent encounters. He is a wonderful person by all accounts. And yet everyone that watches NBA basketball, except for, the fans of the Oklahoma City Thunder, or probably the fans of the Washington Wizards, love to hate him and hate him with vitriol. And it's just weird. And if you're in that situation, you're going to reach a point where enough is enough. And like I appreciate him putting his foot down and saying, like, hey, like, stop doing this. Like, this is enough. This is done. Now, like, Russ plays with sort of a personality on the court that sometimes invites hatred like that. Like he's said publicly that when he's on a basketball court, his only friend is the ball. And when that's, when that's the way you play, like, you're going to make some enemies in the league. Patrick Beverly being one of them. But I just think, like, if you get hung up on, Russell Westbrook doesn't like being called Westbrook, it hurts his feelings, you're missing the point of what he's trying to say.
Yeah, and this is one of these things, and man, it is like interesting that, like, the two people that we're talking about, and if you think about the anger, I think, of the broader, like, sports fan and their sport, like, it is really, like, ratcheted up when it comes to Westbrook, and I've always tried to figure out, and you and I have talked about this, like, why it is that people get so angry at him. And I do think it's a part of the way that he plays goes into it. But at the same time, that is weird for you to be a random fan of a team. You're a fan of the Warriors and you hate Russell Westbrook. It's weird, right? Like, to me, at least. And it's not weird to them because there's obviously plenty of those folks out there, right? And so that's always been a little bit strange to me. The intense dislike, especially earlier in his career. I think it's different with the Lakers, and I think it's different with Lakers fans, and I can speak very personally to this part of it. And I think a lot of it currently with his current team comes from his unwillingness to change his style of play. And him behaving this, or like that him behaving this way, like being like just so aggressive with it on the court when things were going well for him is one thing, but him trying to do the exact same thing, but missing those shots and not playing as well is a totally different thing. And I always thought, though, that once it started to go a little bit for him, that vitriol would ratchet up, and it definitely has. I didn't think it'd be with my team. But the guy that I was thinking about though, as a comparison, when you were kind of describing, like, I don't understand why people like from random teams don't like him. Like, why don't more people dislike Luka Doncic? I guess is kind of my question. So if you want to think about a guy who is brilliant on the court, but is a brat on the court as well, and to that point, he has actually recently said that he is not going to talk to officials as much. Like, but that wasn't, people noticed that and they knew that he acted that way. They knew that he got all of those texts, but there wasn't the same anger towards him. Is it because he hadn't been doing it for as long? Like, there are other players in the league, and Luka's just the first one to come to mind, that I feel like could get some of that same vitriol, but don't. I don't know what it is that sparks that within people about Russell Westbrook, though.
It's because Luka makes threes. Luka fits the sort of archetype of star NBA player X in this like era. Russell Westbrook doesn't fit that, hasn't ever fit that. Russell Westbrook throughout his entire career has challenged like the stereotypical basketball star, because he just doesn't do things the way anybody else did things, and has been throughout his entire career defiantly Russell Westbrook. And like the best comparison is Derek Rose, and it has only gotten better as their two kind of careers have diverged. Derek Rose learned how to shoot threes, and as his game sort of grounded, like he got better as a shooter. Russell Westbrook hasn't done that. And like everybody talked about, like everybody early in his career, everybody talked about Jason Kidd. Like Jason Kidd was this magnificent passer. And when he got older, when his game aged, he learned how to shoot threes. He learned how to be more grounded. Russell Westbrook hasn't done that. Part of the issue that I have with Russell Westbrook is it seems like people continue to talk about him and place expectations on his game as if, this was his 7th or 8th year in the league, when it's not. I mean, he's played 14 years. I think this is his 14th year. He part of it is playing with the Lakers and playing next to LeBron, who just grinds time to a halt.
Yeah,
and
I don't know what to even do with that.
I mean, to a degree, like LeBron has completely shredded like age standards for players in the NBA, because everybody's like, well, look at what he's doing. Like other players should be able to do that, when what LeBron is doing is absurd. Yeah. Absurd if you think about it on that level. But like, I mean, like Russell Westbrook is just he's a line of demarcation for people, because he plays his way. He's not going to change that. He's not going to play the way you want him to play. He's not going to play the way his coach wants him to play. He's going to do him. And if he succeeds, he's going to succeed by doing him. And he did that a lot in Oklahoma City. And if he fails, he's going to fail by playing his game, because it's all he knows how to play. And that is something, I think that's why he endeared himself to fans of teams that he's been on. Lakers are different because it's a weird fan base. Sorry. But like, and that's what makes everybody else outside hate him. He's just not, I mean, he's just going to be himself. And that's a problem. Also, part of this, I try to like remind myself, anytime we get to talking about social media or something that's happening on social media, I always like have to stop myself and be like, 3% of the population is on social media. I think
it's a really good reminder.
This is the extreme. This is people yelling into the void. This is the extreme. I don't think if I like walked down the street in Chicago, well, actually I have done this, so I can say this. I've worn a Russell Westbrook jersey around in downtown Chicago, and like I've gotten people that have stopped me and been like, hey, we don't like the Thunder. They took Doug McDermott from us, but I've never gotten any like, screw Russell Westbrook, things like that. Like I've had people talk to me about Russell Westbrook, and it's been like, he's fun to watch. He's so fun to watch. So like social media is the extreme. And also social media, if you follow sports, is gross. It's just gross. Like the fan commentary on social media surrounding sports is gross. Go look at Adrian Wojnarowski's mentions and you'll lose all hope for society.
I have unfortunately done that, and I don't even know where to begin with. Like some people, and he's not the only one. Like it's like when you get to a certain level,
It's all ESPN
it's
stuff.
just it's just awful and weird. Like it's not even just that all of it is so bad. It's just a lot of weirdness in there. One thing that I do want to also add to your point on why Russell currently is so polarizing, and part of it, yes, is being on the Lakers. I will also take it that we are a weird fan base. I agree with that. Part of it definitely is LeBron and the age defiant. I thought about that, but another thing that came to mind too is it's the contract plays into a part of this currently too, right? What is it, 40? Is it 44 million, 40 million a season at this point? That really, but that's not like Russell's fault at this point either. Like, because I saw people say this when all of the stuff was going down with Nina Westbrook, and Russ comes out and says, this is too far. Like, well, maybe he should give back some of that money. And it again goes back to fans on social media can be really awful, and that you do have to remember that it's not that, because I don't think that your average fan at the arena, I was going to say, is not thinking, oh, he should give back money, but you just never know.
They probably are.
They probably are, because that actually goes into something else I wanted to make sure that we mentioned, which is just fan behavior in general has gotten, even as we've had more and more people fans are now getting kind of thrown out of games or getting called out. There was a incident, was it Nurkic recently, that threw a guy's phone after the guy got too close to him. You've seen LeBron, the aforementioned LeBron James, call out people and have them thrown out of games. You're starting to see fan behavior get called out more, but even with that, I feel like it's getting worse.
I mean, I think about this a lot. I don't know if it's getting worse. I think we're just more attuned to it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, Malice in the Palace happened how many years ago?
Years and years ago. That was 2005 or 6-ish, somewhere in there.
People suck throughout the course of history. People suck. That doesn't change.
I mean, people suck could be the title of this show, but yeah.
And part of the NBA's problem, and this goes to the contract thing too, is players past a certain point, especially once they get off their rookie deal, players are no longer players, they're contracts, and they are talked about as such, and they are treated as such. If Russell Westbrook was making $5 million a year, we wouldn't be talking about him. We would not be talking about him. If he was on a 1-year, $5 million deal, people would be like, well, just put him on the bench. Okay, he's just not playing well. It's just a bad stretch. One thing I saw Matt Moore from the Action Network say, the average fan just has a really hard time grasping that NBA players have bad weeks and bad months and bad seasons, which happens to literally everyone. And if Russell was playing on the Milwaukee Bucks, this wouldn't be as bad. Same team with same title aspirations, but completely different market. I don't think it would be as bad. It's just, it's magnified in LA. And I think that there are a lot of, especially at Laker home games, I think the percentage of the crowd that is there to say that they're at a Laker home game is significantly higher than what, the percentage of the crowd would be at a Milwaukee Bucks home game that would be there just to say that they're there. It's like a social thing. And I'm not poo-pooing your fan base. I'm sorry it's coming off that way, but it's just I think that plays into it, that there's not a ton of true people. There's not as high a percentage of people that are there because they love the Lakers and love the players on the Lakers and want to see the Lakers be successful. As much as people that are there because they want to say that they went to a Lakers game, and
especially in that lower bowl, that area is, because it's priced out. You can't really get your diehard Lakers fan. And this has come up a lot within Lakers fans. Anyway, as a side note, is that if you ever and I've been to one game in my life, and we were not that close. all of the actual fans are up top, like kind of around, and then the people in that lower bowl area that you can see on TV are people that just kind of want to be there, or in the case of like courtside, all of the celebrities. It is a different kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's okay to say. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and if Russ brings his family to the game, like if Nina and the kids are sitting in the stands at the game, they're going to be in the lower bowl. Like they're not going to be up top. They're going to be close to dad so that they can watch him play. So they're going to have to deal with some of that. And then the other thing too is just that, like, and I do this too. It's just sort of the nature of social media. Like you want likes and retweets, so you're going to try to go for shock value or try to be funny. And that compounds.
Man,
so.
that is actually a perfect. It's almost like you do this for a living. That's a perfect segue into my favorite segment of the week. Put them on blast, where we put someone on blast for something that they did or said.
Put them on blast.
I'm going to go first since Derek teed me up just perfectly because Twitter is what my Put 'em on blast recipient is all about. And it's Darren Ravel. He's got to go on blast. Yeah, because I just listen, and it's actually it's even better that I did not put him on blast last week when he initially said this. And the reason he has to go on blast is because he basically attempted to call out a Buick commercial for being weird, and then that point got overshadowed completely because he paired that complaint with a weird take about NCAA women's basketball, where he said that there wasn't. I lost the tweet. Women get less coverage during March Madness because there's less madness, fewer upsets, and the bracket is predictable. That's all. It's not the same product. And that created a firestorm, and rightfully so. His latest, I feel like every month or so, he's in the news of some sort for saying something insane on Twitter. This was just the latest thing. And the reason that I'm happy that I waited to put him on the last is because, of course, after he said that, the beginning of the women's tournament has been great. There have been upsets. There have been some really good games. Of course, you've got South Carolina dominating in that part of it, the same way that you would have, on the men's side, there's always a team that dominates as well. South Carolina women's team is so good. Their length is just incredible. If you haven't seen them play and seen Dawn Staley's team, they're really good. But I digress. Darren Ravel.
You got to shout out Creighton here. You can't gloss over Creighton.
Did I have to? I mean, listen.
They beat Iowa.
They did, but that is as a conflicting a situation as I'm ever gonna have in sports. I was just gonna leave that one alone, but I'll go ahead and say it. That was tough. I guess I'm happy for the state of Nebraska. In that case, but man, Creighton versus Iowa, y'all got a situation where can both teams lose based on the teams. That was tough for me, but
I just wanted to see if you'd go there. I
did. You didn't have to push me hard on that. That was tough. But congrats to the Creighton team. Yeah, sure. But Darren Ravel, he has to go on blast for all of this, and we could put him on blast for many more things. But for this one, he definitely has to go on blast because he made another asinine statement this time about women's basketball.
Yeah, he just makes dumb statements. He just brings it to his doorstep, and I don't understand why he continues to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if that's he didn't have to do this.
You know what? If that's your grift and you want to have however many, what isn't he over 1 million followers on Twitter? He's got an absurd, he's got an absurd following on Twitter, and he's verified. And if that's how you're going to judge your
2 million
worth or successfulness, fine, go for it. Get those followers by acting like a buffoon on social media. Go for it, but also I saw this gets brought up every once in a while. There's some,body that tweeted, there's always the main character on Twitter every single day, and your goal is to not be the main character. And
yes.
Darren Ravel and Adam Schefter are just I want to be the main character. Every day they wake up and they're I want to be the main character. That's what I want to be.
Terrible.
And it's an interesting way to live.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. The main character today is Urban Meyer. I suspect we'll be talking about that a lot more in the coming weeks. That's a great way to think about that. But it is so true. All right, Derek, who are you putting on blast?
NCAA basketball officials. Like, I understand it's a hard job, but stop giving technicals for quote unquote hanging on the rim. Stop it. Enough with the technicals. I'm done. Stop. I understand it's a hard job. I'm not here like bemoaning the missed call, the missed like hip check, backcourt violation, whatever at the end of the Arizona TCU game. Like, we don't need to get into that. I understand it's the heat of the moment. But stop giving technicals for stupid things. Just let them play. Because I saw in the Arizona TCU game, somebody like hanged on the rim and like shook it. And I know that nobody's going to see that, but I'm sure that was a hilarious movement for you to just witness, Craig. Like, he just shook the rim after dunking. And like, it was an outburst of emotion in a very emotional and energetic game. And it was like a cool moment, and they didn't tee him up. And I was like, why does he not get teed up? But the dude in the Illinois game gets teed up for what he did, which was prevent himself from breaking his back on the floor. Like when you're running that hard at the basket and then just instantly stop by grabbing the rim and your body continues to fling forward. If you let go, you're falling on your back.
You are.
So if you hang on, then you can center yourself again and not hurt yourself. Stop giving technicals for hanging on the rim. Enough. Sick and tired of it. There you go.
But that is a really good way to put the NCAA officials on blast, because when you first said that, I thought you were going to say about all of the really bad calls. Like, they were officiating, man, it's at an all-time low. But also, I feel like people are very quick to jump on officials as we're watching replays and stuff like that on TV. So sometimes it is unfair, and there were calls all weekend that were missed. But it's not the hanging on the rim. I think is definitely valid. Not being able to figure out flagrants and flagrant twos and who should be ejected, like those sorts of things too, need to be cleaned up, especially in these tournament games in a one and done situation. But yeah, like we got the hanging on the rim is probably the most egregious of them all. And I feel like it happens weekly in the Big Ten during the season, where someone gets attacked for that. But a very, very well deserved put them on blast.
Yeah, I mean, like, the officiating has been bad, but I've been saying this for years. I think the rule book in basketball needs to be completely thrown out and rewritten. And at both levels. Like, I just don't think that they're put in a position to be successful officials. Like, the rule book needs to be changed across the board. Just throw it out and redo it, because there's just so much stuff that it is just antithetical to what they're trying to do. It just is dumb, and I think it needs to be rewritten. So, like, from that point, like, I can't get too mad at officials for doing what they're supposed to do based on the letter of the law. But also, yeah, like, especially Big Ten officials, like, the technicals that are handed out are absurd and maddening and need to stop giving technicals for stupid reasons. Let them play basketball.
Yes, absolutely. That's going to do it for us this week. Subscribe to the podcast everywhere you can listen to them. Rate us and leave us a 5-star review. If you only leave 4, I'm inclined to think you're a hater, and nobody wants that. Make sure you're checking out the other podcasts on the network. The Mind Your Own podcast, the Varsity Club, Nebraska Preps postgame show, and the Hail Varsity radio show. Also, check out the Hail Varsity YouTube page. Make sure you go like up those videos, subscribe to them. You can find me back on there with another recruiting question of the week video. You can also find us on Twitter at Greg Smith HB and at Dr_PD. I will catch y'all later.
A Huda Media Production.